Hey guys, welcome to This Week with Bob and Chris. We are dropping in a day early this week. Really wanted to share some breaking news that popped this morning, and it's pretty crazy out there with what the bad guys are doing today. So, Chris, want to tell us a little bit?
Yeah, so we used to think the Equifax breach here that led to about 127 million Americans' information being leaked as bad. And then China's like, hold my beer. And a police database has leaked over a billion people's information online.
It's a
And
billion with a B.
a B, yeah. Yeah, a billion. And what's weird about this is the person's only asking for $200,000 in ransom, which is extremely low for that type of information. But what this was announced a couple days ago, but the more information comes out, the worse it gets. Like today's information was this database was actually online for over a year with the data being exposed.
That's
A
crazy.
year. And they have IDs. They have the national ID of these people and all this other information because it was a police database. And it's insane.
Yep,
What
that was in
one
China.
Yeah, it was in China. And one company I saw, they were doing some dark web research and things like that. They saw the information initially show up in January of this year, so roughly 6 months ago. The information was already starting to get leaked. So even that, which could be why the ransom is so low, because this information has probably been accessed by multiple threat actors at this point, and we don't know how many people actually have the information. I mean, it could just be wild, wild west at this point.
Yeah, that's crazy because you're right. It could be if it's been open for a long time and multiple people have grabbed it,
Oh
you
yeah,
don't know where it is anymore.
yep.
Yeah.
And what's worse is GitHub here is for developers, but they put it on CSDN, which is like it's Chinese developer forum, basically similar to the way GitHub works here. The
Okay.
person inadvertently put his access credentials to the police server in a blog post that he posted on there.
You don't accidentally put your credentials in a blog post.
Yep. And it was a 2020 technical blog post, so it's been over a year since he did that. Yeah. Whoops. So we're
And of
sitting
course,
here.
they don't have forensics going back that far.
Probably not. It was an elastic database, so they just were able to access and just extract the data. So how it was something like 22 or 23 terabytes worth of information.
Oh yeah, I'll just download that over my connection today.
Well, that's why it took a little bit to get all the data. Takes a little bit. We don't know what the connection was to the database, but it just kind of goes to show, like in the United States, like some of our data privacy laws are terrible, and there's data brokers out there just scraping data about this. And this was the police. This was who had access to like all the information on these people, and then we sit here and we have data brokers and things like that where they're collecting all this information on us and our habits, and they say they're anonymizing it, but reality is if you look at the data, a lot of times you can pinpoint who somebody was, or at least get down to their device and figure it out from there.
So a billion records on top of the records that were already accessible in the dark web. And,
Yep.
and um, some people might say, well, that's a lot of extra data now. Now I'm not such a target.
Well, I mean, it's
And
it's also China too. So I mean, if you're in the United States, like this is less of a concern. Now if you're a Chinese American and you have family back in China, this is still a major concern for you. Or if you
absolutely.
moved here, if you're a Chinese national and you moved here, even if you become a citizen here, I mean, your data still probably has been exposed.
Now, now the question is, who's really in that database? Is it people of that they're watching? Is it just general stuff? You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're a pretty locked down society, so I would assume it's pretty much everything from what I could tell. I mean, how much personal outside of their national ID and their addresses and stuff like that, I'm not sure.
So, one of
Apparently,
you
they
know,
had government IDs and their ID photos as part
so
of it.
one of the lessons we really need to be thinking about here is the fact that this was a database that was accessible for over a year with the
Yeah,
bad guys getting access, or anyone getting access that happened to read the damn blog post.
yeah. I mean, anybody.
So, what should people be doing today? We need to have some better policies in place and actually look at logs?
Well, not only look at logs, but just let's look at this from the United States perspective. Let's say, no, we don't have a billion people, but let's say, I don't know, pick a big state. We can pick California, or we pick Texas, or something like that. What happens if their entire database got leaked? Like ID photos, any criminal records, your birthdays. It's going to be your social security number here. Like, what does that mean for you? Can you sue the state that does it?
Good luck.
Would you win? I mean, is somebody willing to class action a state? And at that point, we still don't have a way. And this is turning out to be a bigger problem. We don't have a way to change your social security number. You're issued an SSN, and it doesn't change. So once it's exposed in a breach like this, and I'm sure China's probably, I'm not sure if China's like this, but I'm assuming they are. Once it's exposed, it's there, it's out there. So now you have to go in hyper mode and and lock down your credit, make sure you're monitoring that stuff all the time. I mean, you should be doing that anyway, but once you're part of a data breach like this, like now you have to be vigilant forever, not just day-to-day stuff, like forever. So you should be shutting your credit down, only opening it back up when you actually need it. And there's still no guarantee that somebody can't take something out in your name, but at least it kind of gets you to that point where you're trying to do as best you can. So it's a big deal. I mean, this is China, but it's still a big deal if it happens here. It's going to happen here eventually.
Sure, it is.
Probably not to this extent. I mean, Equifax.
Something's going to happen. Is going to be a mistake. Or it could be, it's probably going to be a mistake, or they're going to pay somebody off. We're seeing both of those things. But we worked with a company. I don't know. It's 5 years. It was probably 10 years ago now. They had a data breach because their developer was going to save the company some money and took their entire database home and had it backed up on a server sitting in his house. Well, the server that he got an upgrade on it. All the passwords got reset back to anonymous for FTP, and it got indexed by Google. Oh. So that company had a report in every state, and that was 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago.
Yeah, data privacy laws are now some stuff that's being passed in every state. So now you have all those different laws to deal with. Like that would be an administrative and PR nightmare to have that level of data breach.
Yeah, if that happened to that company today, they would probably be out of business with the amount of data that they lost that was actually sitting out there. It was 10 years ago. The laws were definitely different, but it definitely put stress on this company. And a lot of the records weren't maintained by them. They were maintained by their clients. So I could have been in there 3 different ways, and they had to do data reporting on me every which way I was listed.
Well, I'll give you a hot take. If you're a company and you treat data like that, you don't deserve to be in business anymore. I'm sure that won't be a popular thing, but if you're really that ignorant and that, how should I say this? If you take the cheap way out of everything, if you actually won't, if you're not trying to protect your customers' data and stuff like that happens, you don't deserve to have a company anymore. I'm sorry. We can sit here and we can talk about this every week. We talk about these breaches and things like that. But at some point, people have to be held accountable for this. And honestly, here we're not held accountable. Not enough. Equifax got slapped with a $1 billion fine or something like that, or a $2 billion fine, and it's like nothing to them. It's nothing. At some point, we have to get to a level where the fines actually do hurt and people get prosecuted because they're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if this happens to us, like if we have a breach like this and this happens to us, we're done. We'll get sued into oblivion because we're smaller companies, but these bigger companies, I don't want to say they're untouchable, but they're kind of untouchable. And the government has the same problem. You have CISA out there at least trying to change, the way that they're at least doing some more internal monitoring on government agencies, and at least at the federal level, and trying to force them to patch vulnerabilities and things like that that are going to limit these data breaches overall. But what recourse do we have? Where are the laws to protect us? They're not there yet.
It's great. Yeah. The people are trying to protect it, but you're right. and a lot of times we find that we care more about the client's data than the client.
Oh,
And
100%. We care more about keeping their business running a lot of times than the people that are running the businesses. Eh,
I walked into a client Monday morning. Okay, Tuesday morning. It was a short week,
oh yeah.
and I was carrying some stuff, and I went to set it down in a cube that I was like, oh, this cube's empty. Oh yeah, these two people left last week. They're gone. They were gone for a week before I even knew.
Yeah.
So that
They've had
those
access to all the data and everything for a week.
they had
They can do
access to all
whatever
the
they want.
data, but I was like, well, they were like, well, we don't think they're going to do anything. I was like, yeah, but who else is using their accounts? They didn't think about that. Oh yeah, somebody else could be using their account, couldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, I don't trust my own family, so I fire somebody. They're like that's turned off like probably 5 minutes before that even happens. Like
That's pretty much
access
the way it works.
is denied and revoked before that even happens. We had one. This is a good one. We had one. They told us they were firing the person, and they said, "Wait for us to let you know, and then you can disable access." And we're like, "Cool, you're doing the right thing." What did they do? They fire the person, don't tell us right away, and let the person go back to their desk.
Yep, all the time.
Yeah, and what they do? They opened up their Gmail account and they started trying to steal company files, just dumping them into an email and just sending the email out. Now, luckily, we kind of followed up, and the person did get some files sent out, and we had screenshots of that, and we submitted it to them. That was their responsibility to take the legal route. I don't know what happened there, but we're just like, I was talking to the president, and I'm like, why did you let them go back to their desk unattended? Well, we didn't think they were
So
going to do anything. I'm like, but you just fired the person. What do you think they're going to do?
so I got called into a case once, something similar, where
Yeah.
somebody was being fired. They logged into their boyfriend or girlfriend's machine at home and downloaded a whole bunch of stuff.
What?
And legal got involved. And I said,
Yeah.
this data is sitting on this machine. This is drug study related data. And oh, well, what can we do? I said, well, we can wipe the machine. So their boyfriend or girlfriend's machine got brought into the office where I data wiped it, and so
But let's bring this back to the whole story, right? What happens if we do? Let's take this from a business perspective. You fire somebody who has access to customer data, right? And this goes back to the whole story about China leaking this data. What happens if they just post their credentials or sell their credentials to somebody else, or sell credentials to things that they had access to an outside access broker, and then just walks away?
yeah.
Or you don't disconnect you don't disconnect their account properly, and they just give their credentials to somebody and let them do whatever they want with it. That's what we're talking about. And that's
Exactly.
why it's important to understand who has access to what data and have that documented, so when you actually do terminate an employee, that the process actually terminates the employee and all of their access. Because we don't, again, China, what's going to happen in China? Probably nothing. It's the government, right? Like we said, United States government, if that happens here, I mean, what's going to happen? People will probably sue, but whether that lawsuit goes through is not is another story.
I
We're
mean,
not
nothing might
lawyers.
happen to China, but here's the thing: anyone that's using any of that data to validate who people are, they're going to have a problem. You
Yeah.
know, how are you going to how can you prove anyone is anybody at that point based on those data points?
Well, especially
Because
considering they got the photo IDs too, the government IDs of these people. So
so
they can even submit that as proof that they are the person.
right, so it could people are going to be raising their hands saying that wasn't me, I didn't do that. It must have been because of the breach. So God knows what's really going to happen there.
That's crazy.
So we're at 14 minutes now.
Yeah,
What are your parting thoughts on this, and what should people be doing going forward?
whole lot of things. Try to understand where your data is. Obviously, when the government has it, there's not much we can really do about it. We don't have control over that, but like, be smart about where you put your stuff, where you put your data. You know, we're in a holiday week, so a lot of people are probably either off or working a short week, and you're going to get emails and things like that. They're going to ask for information. Just be vigilant with that, but just understand where your data is. And if you're a business owner or hire somebody that is in charge of hiring and firing people, make sure to go out and map the process out of what somebody has access to. The onboard process is just the offboard process is just as important as the onboard process. Actually, probably
more
important. Yeah, to make sure that we take care of this. So it's to protect your business, because not everybody can leak 1 billion records and survive, or 1,000 records, or even 100 records and survive.
You breach 100 with the right records, and so cool. So big thing right now, like Chris said, assess your risk, know where your data is, reach out. We can help you assess. Both of us can help you assess the risk, find the data that you've got sitting out there, because a lot of times people don't realize how much data is really spread out all over the place in unstructured locations, sitting on people's desktops, even sitting in their download folder, because it's never purged. There's a vast amount of data there that the bad guys could use. So
please stop storing W4 and all these tax records on your local computer in PDFs that are just wide open. We see that way too often. So if you lost that device and it's not encrypted, guess what? All that stuff's exposed. So
I ran into somebody that was storing passwords in a notepad file. We had one called stuff and one called info on the same computer. She spread them around.
In text files, huh? Yeah, don't do that. All right, let's cut that off there. If I drop any more opinions, people might stop watching.
Okay, guys, be safe. Reach out if we have a problem, and comment below if you've got something you want us to talk about. And have a great week. Stay safe.